Uncompromised.
Yes, brother, welcome. We basically just had a mini podcast downstairs, but it's always good to get it on camera, get it going properly.
Absolutely.
I've got a few notes from the conversation already that I want people to not miss out on that we talked about. So, general theme of the podcast, I usually talk about or interview guys who have gone from relative, not rags to riches. When I say riches, like I was explaining to you before, it has to be success in their field or relative success to themselves from maybe where you started out and from what you've built to who you've now become, even from maybe when I met you 18 months ago when we were in Breathe. You've gone through this change of who you were, what you were doing, how you now see the world and that filter, which has been great to see. Yeah. So I really want to take it back to the start so that guys can get an understanding of your foundation.
Okay.
Where you started out, what your first relative big success was financially, business, and all of that. So do you want to give us a rundown? What was the first big success for you?
Big success, yeah. That started back in 2005, 2006. So I was going to college, right? And before that, I worked at this bank as like an auditor. And we did like subprime auto loans, which was like people with bad credit. So I got really good at I was the person that would either approve it or disapprove it at the bank. And I was going to college at San Diego State, and one of my biggest clients owned a dealership down there and was like, hey, I want to hire you, come down here, you'll make like quadruple the money. And again, mind you, I was still in college. And he's like, just come down here, we'll work around your schedule. So I did that. I worked my way up in auto finance. And then when I graduated college, like I told you downstairs, I was making like 18 to 20 grand a month at like 22, 23. So
20 years ago as well.
Yeah. But like all the job offers I was getting when I got my degree in finance were like $3,500 a month for, like $3,800. You go to a big finance firm, you start in the mailroom basically, then you have to work. And I was like, I'm not doing that. I'm already making like really, really good money. So I found success early. I was always entrepreneurial. So I worked my way up and then I got hired. What I thought was like a big moment in my life was at 24, I made finance director of a Toyota dealership in the U.S. And I was the youngest one in the history of the U.S. to make a finance director, at that young of age.
It's a senior role, isn't it?
It's
really?
A very senior role, and you're responsible for collecting tens of millions of dollars every month in paper for the dealerships. You sell the cars, then you have to sell the loans to the bank, get your money back, right? Okay. And if not, then you have to get the car back.
I never knew how that worked. I always wondered how finance worked.
Yeah, so basically, when people come in, you just like, okay, look at their credit, look at their finances, you sell them a car, and then afterwards, it was my job to take all these loans and get them sold to bank and get our money back, plus all the profit. Okay. So I was doing that, and then from there, I transitioned into the mortgage industry. And I told you it was just like out of the movie The Big Short, right? Yeah, It was crazy, like, I'll never forget one of the guys that used to be a salesman at the dealership, and I was above him, right? So I was making like 18 a month, but he was making like 8 to 10 grand a month. He went off and did this, and I remember he came back to the dealership one day driving a brand new S500, right? And he came walking in like he was the king in the world. And I'm like, what? Okay.
That was the car back then. 50 Cent had it in his Get Rich Die Trying. Everyone knows the S500 is there.
The S500 was you made it, okay? You don't have to say anything if you're rolling one of those, so... Found out he was doing mortgages, subprime mortgages. So I said, he's like, I'm making like $30,000 to $40,000 a month just calling random people on the phone over and over and over. And I said, what? Like,
subprime mortgage. This is the scene from The Get Short where he's doing the Jenga blocks and he's like, you pull all of the shit loans together and then I know what you're on about now.
So it was like the Wild West. Yeah. So I figured I need to go at least see what was going on. So I went down to this office. It was just like something out of the movie, huge bullpen. All these guys that were salesmen were just given like these basically like phone books of people that already had loans. And at this point in time, most of these people could never get a loan, or you could save them so much on their interest rate. It wasn't even like selling. It was like taking an order mostly. Hey, Mr. Jones, how's it going? What if I could tell you I could save you $500 on your mortgage a month? Are you interested? Well,
it's a no-brainer. It's just everybody. A sign here.
It's just a sign here. So within 90 days of me going down and seeing what was happening, I quit my job. Wow. And this was the first, you're an idiot, what are you doing? Because for my family, my mom and dad probably made like $4,000 combined a month. I was at a job where I was consistently making like 18 to 20,000 a month. So when I told them I was leaving that, they're like, "You're absolutely crazy. You have a 2-year-old son.
Yeah.
Like, what are you doing?" Right?
How old
like
were you when you had
security.
your son?
I was 23.
Okay.
23. So he was like 2. I was around 25 when I decided to leave. But I'm like, you know what? Like I said, I've always had that entrepreneurial spirit. So this was my first big, like, okay, I'm gonna bet on myself, right? Because I don't know this business, but I know sales because I've been in the car industry now for like 6 years. I'm like, I know sales, and I think I could do this. So lo and behold, I went and started, found a lot of success. It really wasn't that difficult. If you can be in a car dealership and sell someone a car they don't need and tell them it's to rebuild their credit, or like, you know, and do it face to face. For me, picking up a phone and calling some random person I never have to see.
But the deal's pretty much irresistible anyway.
So that was easy. So fast forward, after about 3 months of that, I started my own office. I'm like, once I figured out the game, I'm like, oh. Then I went back to the car dealerships that I work with, right? And I was like the guy that came back to mine. And I come rolling up in a brand new 5 Series. And I was, what are you doing? I'm like, guys, I have an opportunity. So I went and just like recruited all these top salesmen and showed them how much I was making and said, come work for me and I'll help you make more. Yeah, with the blueprint. So it worked great for about 5.5 years.
Until then we arrive at the big short.
Everything was going great. Every month we made more and more, you know, and we were talking downstairs as someone who came from nothing and had no fiscal responsibility and whose parents never taught him anything about anything. I just thought it was never going to end. And then I remember that day in August when it all ended. And like literally within 48 hours, every way I had to make money was done and it wasn't ever coming back. So, you know, it was a very, very difficult time, let's say, because...
Yeah, I saw this statistic, I think it was Forbes that posted about the statistic around how many millionaires have been bankrupt at least once and like had significant loss financially. It's like every single really successful guy I seem to interview now talks about this massive crash, because like when I talk about in coaching to my clients, like some lessons have to be learned to be understood.
Yep.
Like you have to go through it to really create that sense of responsibility, accountability, understanding. And sounds like you went through it pretty hard, crash roller coaster style.
Yeah, when you don't think the party's going to end, then all of a sudden it ends and you still have tons of liabilities. You know, I still had a huge staff. I had a big office. I had all this furniture I leased, computers. Back then you could lease them. So, you know, I was like highly leveraged. So when all of the income went away, very quickly I started to realize that it wasn't going to come back. And I was going to start to lose everything. And that's exactly what happened. I ended up losing, I was in the middle of flipping 7 houses.
Wow.
I was buying and selling foreclosure houses at the same time. So I had been doing that on the side on top of my real estate and finance business, the mortgage business. So within a matter of like, I don't know, 90 days, I think I lost somewhere around $1 million in cash. Yeah, just from like losing deposits on houses that I was flipping and then trying to keep paying my people even though there's nothing for them to do, keep paying the leases on everything. How did you deal with that?
Or what did you not deal with? You know, most guys fall into some kind of vice.
You know, I had a lot of help from Jack Daniels.
You and me both. Yeah.
I'll be honest, like I was drinking heavily and I just was like, man, what I got to do? Finally hire an attorney. He's like, just, you got to go you have to file a personal bankruptcy and a chapter 11, which is a corporate bankruptcy. Right. Because you're going to run out of money and then, you know, it's going to all be over. So that's exactly what I had to do to kind of like calm the storm. It didn't really calm the storm, but yeah, it was really brutal.
That's crazy because when I think about like guys who've had a lot of success as well, like when I'm talking to guys who have been through severely traumatic experiences growing up, and I'm not saying this was you, but there's a recurring pattern in very, very successful men who have self-worth issues and don't see themselves as worthy of achieving these big things, that when they do happen, guys quite often self-sabotage themselves to reinforce the belief system that they had about themselves on a subconscious level. Yeah. Obviously, that wasn't the case for you because you can't predict the financial crash in that sense. But it is interesting because it's like we go through. I relate to this specifically for me because I've gone through that cycle of self-sabotaging and then having relative success again, and then sabotaging it, and the pattern will repeat itself until you learn the lesson.
Yeah.
So obviously that doesn't necessarily apply to you, but in terms of learning the lessons, like what were the biggest kind of financial lessons you learned off the back of that?
Off the back of that?
Yeah.
Oh man. It was like a mastery in personal finance, right? Because then you grow up, and like I told you downstairs, I was blowing money on stuff that like I should have never been.
But the dream life, I mean, you guys can imagine what he was doing.
Oh yeah.
Vegas,
it was crazy weekends in Vegas, 4 seasons, clubs, Miami, Cabo. It was just like, it was like out of those movies. It was like something you would see out of a movie. But you think about it, at that time in my business, there was like a conglomeration of like 20-year-olds who none of us came from money. And now all of a sudden everybody has money, right? And no fiscal responsibility. So there's nobody to tell you anything. And then you know how it goes from like a psychological standpoint. Once you start making more money than people that are older than you, then you don't even feel like they have anything to tell you. Because, and that's how it was with my parents. Like, I'm like,
you don't know. You've not been here.
You've not been here.
But
so
that's the ego, isn't it?
It's a danger zone. Oh, it's so dangerous, man. It was.
But there's that, the quote, I can't remember if it's Jim Fortin or Tim Robbins or something like that. It's like, your level of professional development will never outgrow the level of personal development you've done. And obviously you, through that, have gone through a lot of personal development around finances, which then allowed you to step into the travel stuff. So that was obviously what I wanted to talk to you about as well, in terms of how did that change you to then want to go into the luxury travel? And just for the context of the guys watching, how many countries have you traveled in the world?
Like about 85.
And how many countries are there in the world? Do we know?
Like 192.
Okay, so
maybe
you're over halfway.
Yeah, but I probably have like 40 more that I actually want to go to.
I was going to say there's probably a lot that are like tiny little islands that you probably just wouldn't do.
Yeah, and then Africa's a huge continent, but like there's like 40 countries there. So like a lot of the ones that though I've wanted to do.
And the typical holiday ones that people would want, holiday destinations, luxury travel destinations, you've done it.
I've done pretty much all the major ones.
So run me through how you went from obviously the crash, you got rid of the company, filed bankruptcy. What were the steps in rebuilding yourself then? How did you do it?
Yeah, so funny enough, in the midst of losing everything, right, which I felt like was like the worst time of my life. Like I was a very severely depressed black hole. I had a spiritual advisor back then. Thank God for him. If it wasn't for him, I might not even actually be here. Because I got to a point where like, I was going down that black hole of like, oh man, I don't see how this ends. Is it even worth living anymore? I'm never going to get through this, right? Like just stacked up for as far as I could see. And I was super, super depressed. So he convinced me to organize a mission trip to Africa while I'm losing everything, which sounds absolutely crazy. And in hindsight, it was like, but he had been through a similar crash in real estate 20 years prior. So he had gone through kind of like what I went through, very similar. And he's like, I know you think this is the worst time of your life. He's like, I challenge you to look at it as like the best time of your life. You can't
go any lower.
Can't go any lower. And, you don't see the big picture. And it's just like anytime you go through something bad in your life, whether it's a relationship or, business or personal, it's hard for you to have a really clear vision on what's happening. You're just like looking
you're in it, it's this close.
It's just, you're an expert with everybody else, but with yourself, it's like you have blinders on. So anyway, long story short, he convinced me to do this. I didn't want to do it. Let's go. So I ended up helping organize a mission trip to Africa with 8 other men. We raised $250,000. And before I knew it, I found myself touching down in Uganda, Africa. Leaving my world of chaos behind, and I ended up in a third world country. And in hindsight, he was right. It was the best time of my life because I found myself in an orphanage in Uganda. And there was a moment there that completely changed my life. We were talking about this downstairs. I went into this, we came there to present them a check because the kids didn't have clothes. I mean, there were some kids with no shoes. I saw one child with smashed 2-liter 7-Eleven or 7-Up bottles tied around his feet as like shoes. Like it was bad. Wow. They were drinking out of a cesspool. It was very, very like shock and awe when we showed
Especially
up.
Where you've gone from as well, like LA prime life.
I went from LA luxury neighborhood with everything to like.
That's how I felt about Bali. I think we spoke about it before. Like going to Bali for me was just like crazy. Cause I've never been to like Southeast Asia, let alone like Bali.
Yeah.
So it's the same thing. But sorry, I cut you
off.
Continue.
No. It's a culture shock, right?
Yeah, for sure.
You're like, people live like this, and that's exactly how I felt myself. So. We went in front of the headmaster, took us into their church, their chapel. He said, hey, these gentlemen are here to present you a check. They went crazy, And then afterwards they said, hey, we want to bring you in this room. The kids have prepared this musical performance for you as a token of their appreciation. So we went in there, 8 men in suits, feeling like these kids should be so grateful to us. And, they should be so happy we're here. And I was feeling so proud of myself that I helped to raise all this money. Stupid American, big ego, small, world vision. And then these children just exploded into this dance and musical routine. The girls were in the front dancing. The boys were playing a thing. Everyone had smiles ear to ear. And I just, like a lightning bolt from heaven hit me in the head. And I was just like the onion layers that have been piled on top of me and who I was and how I saw the world and who I thought I was and why I was there. All of this stuff in an instant just like melted off of me. And I found myself sobbing, crying, like overwhelmed with joy. And I'm here looking at these kids who have no parents, no future, living in like the most desolate conditions. And yet they exuded more joy than anyone I had ever met in the US and ever that I had. With all of our iPhones and cars and houses and electricity and water and cable
Material
and
bullshit.
All the shit, I never was that joyful. I learned the difference between happiness and joy, which happiness is fleeting, it's up and down. Joy has to come literally from your heart. And I saw this in them. And so I was like, okay, that's it. I like literally in that moment, I'm like, I'm doing 2 things from now on. One, I'm going to travel and inspire people to travel because there's no way that I could have got out of my own shit and really like realize how big of a dick I was, in that moment. And like the world wasn't the way that I saw it. The world was the way that it was. I was just seeing it like through this little tiny
condition to.
Exactly. And then secondly, I wanted to have a way to pay it forward because in that instance, to do something for someone who can't do anything for you, it was like the best feeling next to having my kids. So like that moment changed me. And then when I came back to the US, I kind of just jumped around from odd job to odd job. I told you I watched that movie, The Secret. Yeah. I started to learn about people like Bob Proctor and Jack Canfield. And energetics. And then I'm like, maybe there's something I don't know. But at that point, I was more open to receive it. Before that, I thought, it was like woo-woo stuff, right? I was like, what? Thoughts are like, come on. Because you never hear that growing up. You were never taught that. I don't know. What about you? Were you taught that growing up?
Definitely not.
No, it's like thoughts are things and you control your destiny and, begin with the end in mind. I'm like, what are these guys even talking? Because again, I had made a lot of money. So you have this huge ego when
you know it all.
Yeah. And then when it just gets stripped from you, you're so open to other things. So then that kind of started me down a journey of like, well, maybe their thoughts are things and maybe I can be intentional about what I want and I don't have to go do a job I don't like. And then, about 3 years later, my son got me onto Instagram, right? Which at that point was 20 million followers in the world. And I found a travel page and I'm like, well, this is really cool. This is way better than Facebook because on Facebook at that time, and I'm old, so I know I'm dating myself, but like people were like checking into this and checking into that. And it was like so personal. And like, I'm at the gym, I'm in a coffee shop. Like who gives a shit? Like
that was the thing. Then.
That was the thing.
Yeah.
But Instagram was just pictures and filters. And I found a page that was like all about travel. And I started to learn about places on the other side of the world that I had never heard of. So I decided to start a page based on what I had done in the past, which is travel and luxury. And it's where a lot of the money I spent it there. But I just started that as a passion project because I'm like, I want to share travel with the world, and I like this better than Facebook. And so then I started a page. Literally, that's how it all came about.
And you built the page up to now, like what, 3 million followers?
3 million followers, yeah.
Wow, that's incredible.
Thank you.
And then when you were doing all of this travel, so I know like now you've gone from the party guy, you become more grounded and connecting into the fulfillment side of wanting to build something that brings you purpose. It's not all about the money, experiences, but now you're very much fitness and health orientated, which is amazing to see. When did that transition happen? And I've got a question for you because a lot of my guys who, business owners, corporate execs, whatever, travel, really struggle. One of the biggest bottlenecks is being healthy, traveling on the go. So when did that start? And what's your advice for people who want to stay fit and healthy while traveling?
It's difficult. I mean, traveling and staying fit is very difficult because, you know, I was on the go a lot. Every hotel has a different gym or they don't have a gym, you know. So for me, it really started with, I had learned all this stuff over my deep dive, right? So when I first started the page was like all the woo-woo stuff, right? But then once I got into it and once I started to live and manifest my dream career, then nobody can tell you anything, right? Once I was getting flown to like Bali, Thailand, Maldives, they're paying me and I was doing all this stuff. And I know it sounds cliche because so many people want to have that breakthrough and get to the other side and be one of the people that can speak about it. But I can tell you, when you've done it, not to work hard like I did before and just grind and make money, but when you start something as a passion project or out of your passion, right? And you believe that there's something better for you that's happening. And then the universe starts to make it happen. You get on the other side of it, then you have like unwavering faith, right? Because then now you've lived through it and you're like, it's not like before where I had to work super hard to make this much money and there was a direct result of how much time I made.
Tangible measuring.
Correct.
As opposed to internal.
With the second journey, things started to happen outside of my control where opportunities were coming. And I was always, me and my team reaching out and trying to get people to sales, where when I was on the other side, I was getting invited. Opportunities were coming the other way. I'd never seen that before. Open
to receive that stuff
exactly,
as well.
Yeah. Energetically, it was never that. You know, I just saw my dad worked really, really hard. So I thought the only way to make money was to work really, 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 really hard. But now we both know that that's not how it works. So for me, then once I got the other side, I learned that like I needed to become extremely disciplined. So to answer your question, like how do you do that? It's really, you know, I developed a morning routine based on all these thought leaders and people and all these books that I read and all these podcasts and videos. And, you know, I found a common denominator, which was they were all talking about like mastering their mornings, how important the morning was.
Setting the intention for the day.
Setting the intention for the day, which becomes then the intention for the week, which becomes month. And then, you know,
and
obviously.
This is how you got onto building the book, right?
That's how I got onto writing the book was, you know, I realized that if I didn't start first thing in the morning with my discipline, then by the time I got home from work or the whole day was done, you know, you're just smoked. You're energetically
That's
done.
huge. That is so huge for, like, I say to my guys, it doesn't matter what the morning routine is, whether it's like, you know, people have this obsession with the extremes of it. And I literally posted a reel yesterday about why 75 hard is bullshit, because it forces or gives men the perpetual fantasy that they're achieving something that they're really not, because the morning routine and creating the discipline isn't about what you're doing, it's about what it allows you to be open to afterwards. So the discipline of putting yourself first, what that stands for as a fundamental principle. So this is why I say when guys are obsessed with things like ice baths and having these really elaborate morning routines, I'm like, the thing doesn't matter. Your morning routine just has to be one thing you're doing for yourself, because that sets the precedent for the rest of the day. Because if you're just getting up and you're being dictated by other people, responding to messages, you're already, you know, in that, it's not about being submissive, but you're just not in control of your own pace. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
So tell me more about the morning, what does the book and the gist of it focus on? Yeah,
so the morning routine is I put together an ebook called Rewire to Rise. And it's just a 4-part morning routine that I follow every morning that I felt worked the best for me. Again, like you said, there's a
specific to
number
you.
of different ones you could probably use, but for me, it was all about, even once I got into the science of it, when I learned scientifically, they've proven that like the first 15 minutes of your day are so uber important, because your brain's coming out of theta and delta waves. It's high vibrational frequency. And then it drops down into beta, which are the lower vibrational frequency, which is like, I drive to work, I get ready, I brush my teeth. Yeah, I scroll my phone, blah, blah, blah. But when you wake up, your brain is in that transition. So those first 15 minutes is when your subconscious is really still open to new intentions, new thoughts, new programming. Yeah. And from everything that I had learned, like that's where all your power lies. You know, so many of the gurus and the people that I listen to and all these thought leaders and very successful people talk about like the subconscious holds 98% of the power, and your conscious is about 2%. So you really need to establish a way to program and reprogram that part of you, so you're not still running these low vibrational programs that are keeping you stuck in loops, which just become reoccurring patterns until you learn the lesson and rewire it. So for me, it's a 4-part routine. The first part of it, which is like a bonus, is I even created a ringtone, so that when I'm waking up, it's not like a car horn or like, you know, because it's like it's so jolting. So there's a really nice ringtone that brings you into it. And then it goes into using earphones and listening to binaural beats. You know what binaural beats are, right? Yeah. Like hemispheric synchronization. Yeah. So it synchronizes the left and right side of your brain because they function at, you know, different levels. And then getting into having like very specific like affirmations. But I think a lot of people say affirmations, but they don't realize like the words mean nothing. It's taking time in between those sentences to feel the feeling of that fulfilled and done, not as like a future tense, but as like a present tense.
It's training your nervous system to expect different feelings and frequencies. So this is something that I say, it's really hard to explain to people that aren't open to hear it, and guys who, because I get a lot of guys who come to me really wanting to make huge identity changes, which is amazing. They're already set the North Star. They understand what they want to work towards. Yeah. But they're still stuck in a stage of, they need the awareness phase to really, and it's not just about going to therapy. I'm not saying that, I'm not a therapist. Yeah. But helping guys understand their conditioning on a subconscious level, because when we talk about, say, like the inner child and the belief systems we form when we are in that very early on developmental stage, we develop what we believe to be true about ourselves, and we filter the whole world through that subconscious lens. And unless you bring attention and awareness around what you've been conditioned to believe, and the why doesn't matter. It's like when we talk about trauma, it's Gabriel Maté says, you know, it's not about the thing that happened, it's about our connection and how we interpreted the thing, the trauma we internalized. When guys don't do that work, and this is what I was talking about earlier on in the podcast about guys who self-sabotage, and I know this because I've lived this experience, and that's why I now help guys with it, is because
right there with you,
until you change that belief system and bring awareness to it and rewire that belief system, you're always going to gravitate back to what the ego wants to prove right. Correct. Which is, you know, you can do all the ice baths, you can do all the journaling and stuff, but until you create the space to change on a nervous system level, you're always going to default back into what's familiar and comfortable.
Correct.
So
absolutely. And
a question for you, I was going to say, is what's the biggest change then that you and belief system that you dropped to then step into this new phase of your life?
Yeah. So I also did, you know, on my own, I did do a lot of like quantum therapy and inner child work. I didn't realize the importance of that. I just, you know, I grew up with like a very masculine dad. So therapy to us was like weakness.
Woo-woo. It's the woo-woo
the
stuff,
woo-woo.
isn't it?
And it's also weakness.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
I wasn't allowed to cry. I wasn't allowed to show emotion. So to talk about feelings was like
uncomfortable as well.
Super uncomfortable and not part of like our culture. Basically, I'm Hispanic, so like he was very Mexican, machismo, you know, iron fists, spanked and beaten and da 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 da. So, like, that would never happen, right? But when I realized how important it was to actually dive into this stuff, and they learned that like there are these programs that are created from the time you're born to 7 years old that repeat through your life that you don't even know you're running
until you well, we used that analogy when we first got to know each other really well about men are like onions. You've got to peel them back a layer at a time. And
and you know, when you do the work and you do the therapy, like one of the things that was like super shocking to me, and I'm sure a lot of men might be able to relate to this, and I use this example all the time, is that like, for me, I put my mother on a pedestal, right? She goes to church, God bless her, she goes to church 3 times a week. She's like the sweetest woman you ever met. She doesn't drink, she doesn't smoke. She's lived like as close to a straight arrow life as you could possibly imagine. And she's the sweetest person on earth, right? Absolute sweetest person on earth. And would never do anything to harm me intentionally. Does that make sense? And a lot of guys probably think about their mom the same way. Like, she's the best. She would never do anything to me. She loved me. But when I got into like the therapy and the quantum therapy, and I went back into my childhood, so many of these memories that I had suppressed about my mom growing up were her stressing about money, were her crying about money, were her nagging my dad about lack of money, me asking her for stuff and being told like money doesn't grow on trees, be happy and grateful for what you have, don't ask for anything.
Rich people are assholes.
All this stuff.
Same as well.
Now again, she had no idea that she, at such a young age, she was creating subconscious programs that I was going to continue to run for the foreseeable future. And so for me, it was really the changing point for me was finally figuring out like what you don't know, right? And really like being open to be like, okay, maybe everything I was taught by my parents, my school, my political system, the news, isn't the truth, and maybe there's something on the other side of the fence that I don't know about. And I think deciding to step outside of my comfort zone, make my parents uncomfortable, make my friends and family uncomfortable, and go on a journey to figure out what my truth was the biggest step forward that unlocked everything for me. Because then once you understand that there's stuff going on that you don't know, then one by one you can start to really get into that. And I just developed a very disciplined behavior like, hey, I want to become the best version of myself possible. I don't care what anyone thinks. And I'm going to one by one go into these different subjects and figure out what I don't know that I don't know, so that I can rewire my brain to have the life that I want to know. Because I knew it wasn't a result of being a good person morally or working hard, because
having money and things.
I have like 100 cousins, all of them. I have a huge family in LA. They're all great people and they all work hard. Everyone's broke. So I'm like, it has nothing to do with if you're a good person. It has nothing to do with if you're morally a good person or if you work hard. There has to be something outside of what I've been taught that really unlocks your power to work with the infinite. And then, so for me, it was just developing a discipline to like stick on that path, regardless of what anyone thought of me or what, how they perceived me on social, because I wanted to like get to the bottom of it, and really figure out what's going on.
Again, that's like really what the work you're describing is the ego work, because before the need to stray from your path of what you actually want to do is for validation externally through the family members, for everyone else. But true self-love is being able to operate from a position, and true vitality is the lack of judgment for self. So you can never really experience true health. I'm quoting Peter Crone here.
Yeah,
you can never experience true vitality and health without having a lack of judgment for yourself, because that is internally the fundamental driving force for most people, because they don't have self-worth. They have to get validation externally from the money in the early days, the parents' approval, even though they'll never get it. All of these things from friends and family, people pleasing, overworking to feel worthy. So it's like you've gone through that position of externally validating yourself to now operating from a position of complete acceptance, which, like you talk about, that infinite abundance mindset and open to receive, which has now helped you transition into this new role where you're exploring, I don't want to say coaching, but mentoring a little bit now. Something you're going to flirt with the idea of?
Something I'm floating with. I've been asked by so many people since I released my book, which I was giving away for free. I just was like, can you do a one-on-one session? Can you coach? Can you help me? And we've had even talks about it. It's not something where I want to do like one-on-one coaching, or I want to, I've mentored 200 people on how to be become travel influencers over the last 12 years. So I've already done that for a long time, right? Like I felt so blessed that I learned something that manifested my dream career, that I helped 200 other people.
I want to give that back.
It was part of what happened in Africa. Remember I said I want to pay it forward. So I've already helped over 200 individuals go out and chase their dream career. And most of them now are doing it full time. So I've done that, right? But this really was more like, over the last 12 years, the number one question I've been asked, like tens of thousands of times in podcasts, interviews, DMs, emails, imagine having 3 million followers and some come in and some go out, right? So like it's probably interacted with 8 to 10 million, I would say, over a 12-year period. Number one question I get asked is like, how are you able to do what you do? And most people think, well, you started an Instagram page, so of course you got it at the right time, and they start projecting all their limiting beliefs on you. Oh, you started in 2012, so you got in the right time, and then you got really lucky. And
this won't work for me because
exactly.
Basically.
And then you probably caught a break, and maybe you got a viral post and got you there. So they start projecting their limiting beliefs on like what they think your story is. Little do they know, like for the first 5 years, I posted 8 times a day. Let that sink in.
Was that just photos or mixture of
just
content?
Just photos. And then when videos hit, it was videos. But I wanted to make it the best possible page in the world. So I poured everything into it, right? But what they don't understand is that like the number one question they asked is like, how are you able to do this? What they don't understand was like, even before formation of the page, the intention was to be able to do what? One, travel the world and inspire others, because that's where I had that moment in Africa.
Yeah.
And then secondarily, pay it forward. Instagram was just my manifestation of a platform that allowed me to do that.
Yeah.
And one of the things I tell people is like in 2008, I told you downstairs, in the midst of losing everything, when I came back from Africa, and I came back, I hated everybody because I'd hear them complain like, oh, I was stuck in traffic today. I'm like, there's kids in Africa. Don't have
Then
clothes.
you were the virtue signal.
I wanted to punch everyone in the face and like, oh, I can't believe beer costs $6.99 a 12-pack. I'm like, you son of like, I fucking hated everyone.
Sprite
literally.
shoes.
For like 3 months, I wanted to punch everyone I ever talked to, because I came back and you just hear complaint. I'm like, oh no.
Nothing.
Like, you, I'll kill you. I was so fed up with people, but what was I talking about?
You're talking about coming back from Africa, what you were going into next, that transition.
Oh yeah. Okay. So I came back from Africa, highly motivated, super pumped. I created a vision board from the movie The Secret. I posted it on my Facebook page, right? In 2008, I posted a picture of my vision board. Now, at this point in time, I was dead broke. I was losing everything.
Quick recap on what was on it. A few things.
80% travel, yachts, jets, private islands, like words like jet set lifestyle, like, vacation anywhere, all this stuff. And I remember when I posted, I tagged everyone I knew, my mom, my brothers, sisters, cousins, all my best friends. And like, it's still on there. We can pull it, we'll find it. And it felt like a lie, right? And again, this was what the whole secret that people don't want to, when they refuse to accept new beliefs, this is the one thing I believe that stops people from elevating their lifestyle, is that you have to begin with the end in mind, and you have to believe and feel the feelings of accomplish the goal now. And it seems like a lie. It will seem like a lie when you first start to do it. It will not feel comfortable when you're doing it. But as somebody who actually went through this, and every time I would post on Instagram, again, mind you, I was doing it 8 times a day, I got into a routine of like looking at the picture and then closing my eyes and for like 10 seconds feeling what it would be like to be at that place. And this became a routine that I was doing. And I didn't even know at that time how important that was. But then I found myself in Koh Samui, Thailand in 2015. And 5 of the people that I had tagged in that vision board were with me. Why? Because a luxury villa in Koh Samui had invited me to come there and stay for 1 week in this like luxury villa hotel with private chefs, butlers, the whole thing. No one else there with us for 1 week. And 5 of those people, again, were in that. And we got invited by one of our friends to go to the W, Koh Samui, which is like 10 minutes down the road. And this is where like all of what we've been talking about really hit me and like then made it so irrefutable to me that nobody can tell me anything else. So the W Koh Samui, and you can Google it, has one of the most incredible infinity lounges ever. So it's like that's like round lounges that are sunken down and there's water around them, and then like infinities out into the ocean, and then there's like just these, you know, the Thailand islands, the big rock islands. And so we went to go meet friends there, and there was a whole group of us, and we sat down, and I had my cousin, who's like one of the closest people in my life, on my left, and my best friend Tiffany on my right. And my friend Tiffany goes, "Gil," I go, "What?" She goes, this picture where we're sitting right now was on your vision board in 2008. And I was like, I'm getting goosebumps. I'm like,
because you felt it before and you put it out there, and yeah.
Bro, I was sitting on a place on my vision board unknowingly with 5 people that I had tagged.
People
from like
say stuff
7
like that,
years
it makes
previous.
me think we're living in a simulation or something crazy like that. Because what are the odds?
But again, like, so it sounds crazy, but you can go to my Facebook page and it's there. We can give the people the link. And I have pictures from the trip when I went. But as you said, it's either a 1 in a billion like coincidence, or it's the way that things work. Right?
This is what I say to my clients all the time. And I use the term in marketing to explain, like, you market to what they want, give them what they need. And you know what I do with the blood work, with the coaching, you see the transformations of guys going from, you know, absolute shit show shape to world class. And like, I just want that. And I'm like, okay, buckle up, because we've got to establish what your North Star is first. And when you're talking about feeling that experience and setting that intention down the line, that is essentially what we do. Because when we're talking about reverse engineering it from end result to where they are now, so many guys focus on just like the stuff in between, and they don't think about like the end goal with it, with regards to, okay, how's that going to look in your professional life, in your personal life? How do you want to feel physically? Because so many guys, me included, have got a, you know, professional success, hit X revenue target, have got the set of abs, have got the personal life where everything's perfect, but still felt incredibly lonely. And I'm like, because you haven't really taken the time to tune into what you actually want. And I'm not going to get as deep as saying on like your soul's level and like destiny and stuff like that. But it's like, if you don't take the time to really feel and tune into like, what is it you actually want? Not what you think you want, not what you believe you should want based on what society's told you and what everyone else has told you. What do you actually want? Because until you get clear on that and honest about that, going back to the inner child subconscious programming, like, you'll always self-sabotage yourself and move away from it because you don't actually truly value it on an internal level. So when things get hard for you, and that might be a physical journey, transformation, you'll give up because it doesn't align with what you really want. It's like, you know, the obvious example is for men is, you know, how do you want to feel raising your kids? Do you want to be that guy who's out of breath and can't play with your kids, or do you want to be the guy that's got the vitality to pick them up and play? You know, that's a really easy example for guys, and that is the case for a lot of guys, and that's absolutely fine. But for a lot of people, it can be deeper than that in terms of a goal. And it's like, if you don't take the time to be honest with yourself about what that compelling North Star is, the thing that's going to pull you forward day to day, correct, you'll always kind of veer from the track.
I agree 100%.
So a question I've got for you that I thought you've gone through so many changes on not just a mental level, but career level and lifestyle and things like that. I know a lot of the guys that I speak to, one of the things that they struggle with most is actually the biggest driving force. I always say guys are either moving towards pleasure or away from pain. Unfortunately, pain's usually a bigger driver.
Yeah, always.
Than pleasure of having the feeling of the cars or whatever, and the materialistic stuff. A lot of the guys, when you peel them back and that onion layer and you get to the core is like most guys are just lonely.
Yeah.
So in those transitions for you, was that quite a big driving force when you found you had everything on paper?
Yeah, it was. It was. We were talking downstairs, and like I think it was like 2007 around when I had the big house. I had the cars in the driveway. I had the boat. I had the jet skis. I had all the stuff, right? And I remember after having a big party at my house when I was sitting at my dining room table looking around, and I was like, I thought there was more than this, right? Because again, I hadn't found my why. I had made a lot of money, but I didn't have what I felt like was my life. My life purpose wasn't to sell all these bad loans to people, make as much money as I could, because there was no level of fulfillment in that, right? There was nothing that more I could feel. And I remember sitting there thinking, I always thought it would be different than this, right? I thought it would be like a different energetic feeling. And I think unless you have like a why and what you want to do, you will always feel like that no matter how much money you make. And so like recently, I felt this started happening after me and my ex broke up around May of this year. I said, you know what? I've been doing the same thing for 12 years. I've inspired tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions of people around the world to travel. But there was something inside of me that was always feeling like my throat chakra, if you believe in that, was like closed because I had absorbed so much knowledge in the field of mindset, neuroscience, all the stuff that we've been talking about, but I'd never shared it. Right?
And that's a burden.
It's a huge burden.
It's like I speak to my clients all the time about this because Andy come to me with huge fatigue, motivation issues, automatically, because especially now it's such a buzzword. It's like the testosterone TRT thing. They're like, Andy, I think I've got low test. I want to get my bloods done. And I'm like, are you happy? And they're like, fuck you on about? And
exactly.
Like, are you happy in your life? Like, how's your relationships at home with your family members, with your work colleagues? How do you feel about your job? And they're like, why the fuck are you asking me this? And I'm like, because that is going to be a much more of an emotional draining burden. And when I talk about root cause testing as what I do as a functional blood chemistry practitioner, is the reason why I ask a lot of subjective questions around your lifestyle as a holistic coach. How are you emotionally? What do you look like on a day-to-day basis? What are your routines? Yeah. Is because, and this is where I think conventional medicine fails, is they're just looking for pathology. So they'll run your bloods and they go, right, Gil, you're in the range there, that range, that range, that range. Absence of disease, good, off you go. But that's not health. Health is emotional, it's spiritual, it's physical. So when I'm saying about improving your energy levels, I'm like, okay, let's tackle the big rocks on a root cause, because you might have low testosterone. You might have gut issues. In my case, they were all stemming from, I was training hard and I was under fueling on a physiological level. That had an impact. Yeah. I was also very unhappy in my life. So the emotional baggage and stress of that was creating a biochemistry imbalance in the body.
Absolutely.
So when I say that to guys, at first they're like, when I talk about that concept I was on about earlier about market to what they want, give them what they need. Like most guys will come to me wanting a solution to their testosterone. I'm like, cool. We can look at why that might be. Yes, you might have nutrient deficiencies, zinc, magnesium, vitamin D, all the precursors for the production. But until you get the other stuff right, the emotional stress tolerance, all of that stuff.
It's just a Band-Aid.
Yeah. And this is what I say about TRT for guys now is everyone wants to jump on it. And don't get me started on coaches who are on TRT but running bodybuilding dosage. That's a different story for a different podcast. Yeah. But that is a huge thing as well of like tuning into that emotion, tuning into the what I call root cause of your health, and tying in what Peter Crone said about the vitality. True vitality is being free of judgment, and the judgment of not tuning into why you actually need these things in the first place,
And that's why I love Eastern medicine. That's why when you understand energy, when you understand the universe, when you understand everything is energy, they've already proven that. This is like quantum physics now is caught up to the Eastern philosophy in the way that they actually think. So now we know it's all true, right? Everything's energy. Energy cannot be made or destroyed. It can only be transformed.
It just moves.
Right? It just moves. And when I talk to people that are super religious, I'm like, what's your definition of God? always has been, always will be, is everywhere, cannot be
Omnipresent,
created
yeah.
or destroyed. He's omnipresent. Okay. Guess what energy is?
And it's,
you want to call it potato, whatever. And some people are so religious that they refuse to accept that. But what they can't refute is the fact that now they've proven scientifically that this is true. Like energy cannot be created or destroyed. And, we are electromagnetic beings.
mm-hmm.
We are. We're made up of 80.
Can't see it.
We can't see it. We're 87% water. We're electromagnetic beings. We all have our, electromagnetic field around us. And like you said, we've just been taught about the physical part of our body our whole life, but nobody talks about the emotional, energetic part of our body, which, again, when you do this work on yourself, when you release past traumas, when you are intentional about your mornings, when you are disciplined to set aside 15 to 20 minutes to yourself to energetically rewire your brain and set the intention for what happens, it's incredible physiologically what can happen. Like when I really dove into this 6 months ago, I was 103 kilos, right? I was breaking up with my girl. I was 103 kilos. I said, I'm going to take all this stuff that I've learned. I'm going to write my own book. And then, not to be a hypocrite, I'm going to do this every single day, right? And I'm going to prove to people before I release it that I'm going to have a huge breakthrough. And if I'll give you before pictures of me, these guys, I've shown them to them. When I'm like literally in May of this year, I'm 103 kilos. Today, this morning, I'm 86 kilos. But how did that happen without taking Ozempic, without getting my stomach stapled, in the midst of going through a breakup with who I thought my dream girl was? It all started with the discipline in the morning to be like, you know what? I can't control what she's doing. I can't control the world. I can control the fact that I'm going to dedicate this amount of time to making myself better one day at a time. I didn't say I was going to do it for 6 months, which again is another reason why I think guys give up on goals, because they're not doing anything, and then all of a sudden they're like, I'm going to do this for a year. Like the first of the year, someone who hasn't worked out for all of 2025, I can guarantee you is going to be like, in 2026, I'm going to the gym 5 times a week. And then the first week they'll go twice, and then they'll fail, and then they'll fail, but then they won't even go back to the gym, right? It's not like it's progress, not perfection. There's just like, I set this ginormous goal and I don't do it. But I'm telling you, when you're intentional about your mornings and you're being disciplined to yourself for the first time to invest into yourself so you can have the relationship you want, the job you want, the financial position that you want, it's very interesting emotionally and energetically what starts to happen in your body. I used to be someone that said, I'm a night owl. I never get up early in the mornings. So I was always dead tired. I was always freaking lagging in the afternoons. Now I'm doing 7 a.m., 7:30, 8 a.m. workouts. But again, like, why did that happen? It's because I stopped telling myself that I was a night person. I rewired myself and I set intentions and goals that like, I want to become a better version of myself. So it starts with, I have to get up early in the morning, doing it one day at a time, setting my intentions and getting into routine. And then routines build momentum. And now everyone that saw me when I come back to Marbella is like, dude, I mean, I wish I was a health coach. I wish I had a supplement, because like I could sell thousands.
Yeah, but you're glowing, man. Like you can see the difference in you, especially from when I met you over a year ago.
Yeah,
I think
I was like bloated, fat,
just
like
inflamed.
I was so stressed, and for me, this book was like my release of all this information that I had. It's like, I'm not even charging for it, but I just want people to like really understand how important it is to put energy into yourself.
But the most literally the most typical mindset as well is like when you're giving that away free, people are like, oh, it can't just be that. They're just so dismissive because they think it has to be some magic pill, and you're like, something as simple as that. It's not simple, but straightforward in terms of like organization and structure. Like, no, it can't be that. It has to be something more exciting. And it's like, but one thing I found with coaching guys who are relatively successful in terms of business and corporate stuff like that is people always place a lot of emphasis on adding. And one of the first things I do as a health coach and an identity coach on that level is removing. And a lot of guys focus on what supplement can I add? What can I add to my routine? How much more can I do? And it's all about more, instead of the quality. And have you found that when you created those energetic shifts for you personally, you noticed that change in yourself and morning routine, did you have to start setting a lot more boundaries to protect that energy?
Absolutely. Friends fall off. Where you consciously decide to allow your energy to flow changes dramatically, because then you understand that, like, if I spend time with these people, yeah, there might be my friends, quote unquote, but you know, if vibrationally, energetically, they bring you down, then your subconscious, your superconscious, you call it your little voice inside your head, you know immediately when you should be somewhere or not be somewhere, when you should be doing something or not be doing something. And so I feel like that muscle starts to build, because you're having, when you do a lot of meditate, and part of my morning routine is like meditations, right? And when you're spending a lot of time going to that still small place and listening to that inner voice in your head, it gets louder and louder and louder and becomes stronger. So then you're a lot more cognizant about like who you're hanging out with, what are you doing, what are you watching. Now, if you were to look at they always say
mental diet.
Correct. They always say, like, if you want to know someone, you want to know who someone is, forget anything that they say out of your mouth. Go to their Instagram and go to their explore page. That'll tell you exactly who that person is, right? Because the algorithm is like everything they've already looked at a million times, it just pops it more. If you look at mine, it's like Joe Dispenza. It's like Rob Proctor. It's like all these quantum mindset and like motivational Instagram pages. I swear to God, there's no girls in bikinis. It's like U.S. basketball, U.S. football, and then motivational and travel stuff.
Mine's
right?
dog videos.
Yeah. I mean, that's all that it is. But like, I've even found that I was a sports nut my whole life. I watch less sports because I realized that, like, when I have time, free time, when I'm done with everything, I would rather be evolving and learning, because it becomes very contagious once you start to see results, once things start to move, once you start to get into that flow state, that it's a step back to go, like, I can't remember the last time I turned on Netflix and just watched something random. For me, it's YouTube or podcasts. Like, does that make sense?
It does. And it's interesting because I was speaking to my client about this the other day, what I call the productivity trap. Because when you go through some level of growth, if we revert this back to, say, class example of an A-type guy that's really like driven, really authoritative, thinks they, knows themselves very well, very assertive. Some of the reasons on a identity level of why these guys that I work with are so successful is the validation of I'm not enough, which is the internal lens they operate through in life. And sometimes, and it's really important to be aware of this, those same types of men, once they go through a bit of an identity shift, can basically substitute the hard work and the productivity to then doing self-development, which is really just a distraction from being sat alone, sat with themselves, of just fundamentally understanding on an identity level, I am enough. And so many guys fall into that trap of, I just want to be doing more and more and more. And it's the same thing, just dressed up as a different package. And that's something that I say to guys like, I really find it hard to just do nothing. And you're laughing because that's you, right?
It used to be. I remember, when I when I moved to Marbella 5 years ago, I would start
the same time we moved.
Yeah, I would start getting nervous on Thursdays and Fridays. Why? Because I would need to know exactly what I was doing Thursday night, who I was doing with Friday night. Like, I needed to know, like, the weekend was, and again, it's okay to go out on the weekends. It's okay to have fun on the weekends. It's okay to enjoy yourself. I get it. But my identity was based around, like, here comes the weekend and I know exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to consume so much alcohol between Thursday and Sunday. And my whole energetic focus was about, like, being out, being partying, being seen, being validated, la, 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 la. And I used to get, like, anxious on Thursdays and Fridays, trying to think about what am I going to do, and, like, having a fear of maybe nothing happens and I have to spend the night with myself, like, that's a big problem. But again, that's because looking for validation outwards. And what I've really learned is like, once you understand that you're enough, right? Once you understand that you don't need to chase, you want to attract. And again, it comes back to energetically. You want to be a magnet. You don't want to be someone who's, you know, like being pulled sucked by a magnet. Yeah. Exactly. Then I feel like you can have those times where you spend by yourself. And in isolation, I feel like that's where God, universe, whatever you want to call it, ether, does some of the most powerful work. Because, you know, kind of like what I went through in 2008, and my spiritual advisor told me this, you know, like a diamond becomes a diamond during those times where it's being crushed as coal, right? It's through those times of like isolation, when you're separated, where a lot of those distractions and things that you thought were important energetically are pulled away from you, so that you don't have to keep projecting everything outwards, but you can really focus on here. And once you understand who you are and how everything works, and you become enough to yourself where you don't need that outward validation, then you really see the world in a whole different lens, right? Then it's kind of like Neil when he woke up, you know, out of the goop, and he looks around, because then you're like, oh shit, the way I was taught that this works is not that. And now that I know I don't have to chase anymore, and I can attract, and I can be, you know, 100% present in who I am, I don't no longer seek outward validation. I no longer have to react in certain ways, a certain income, you know, like then you start to see all the little things in life that I don't do anymore. Now, if like I'm driving home and someone cuts me off, back in the day, it's like, you motherfucker. Yeah. Now I'm just like, he needs to get there faster than I do.
Yeah.
You know?
When people think about road rage, it is literally, when you break it down on an identity level, the translation of I'm not enough, because, if that's happened to me, he must think I'm nothing. There's a part of me that actually believes that.
It's a spiral, just zzz, and it goes all the way back to childhood.
And when you realize that, and you're like, just go. I still do it. I still get fucking pissed off. Be for life, I get caught up. But it's, as the quote goes, life will present you with people and circumstances to reveal where you're not free.
That's a good one.
Peter Crone. I love it. He's the man.
He's a good one. No, he's a good one-liner, and he's also he's someone that I follow on Instagram as well, because you know, like, you gotta, and that's the other thing. Like, I used to just like listen to random radio. I used to watch random TV back in the day. You know, like I would need things to just shut my brain off, right, and just like zone off
from feeling.
But even then, you don't realize like what you're absorbing through some of those messages, right? So now I'm so cognizant about anything I listen to, anything that I watch. You know, if it's not something I feel like can level me up in some certain way, aside from like a random like blockbuster movie that I might go see,
which there isn't these days because of COVID. Everything's too woke.
So
that's a conversation for a different story as well.
Yeah. So getting back to your original question, it's just like, once you go through all of that and you understand it and you're on the other side of it again, and I know a lot of people are like, I want to be on the other side of it. I want to know what that feels like. But the biggest piece of advice I could give them, and we covered, was that putting the work into yourself, really defining in life what you want, and how many different core principles you want, you know, that it is, having a clear vision of what that looks like, and then allowing yourself daily to feel the feelings of that completed. That's the fastest way to get over the mountain. I like, from everyone that I've studied from me personally living through it, from all the most successful people that I know, that I've talked to, that I've done podcasts with, like, that's, everyone wants to know what the secret formula is. Like, literally that's it. Right? But if you don't spend time defining what that is, then you'll never know what it looks like. If you don't know what it looks like, you'll never know what it feels like. And if you don't know what it feels like, the universe, subconscious, whatever you want to call it, the ether, it just gives you whatever your energy is focused on.
Yeah, the universe gives you what you are.
Gives exactly what you asked for, right?
Yeah.
And I said this in another podcast the other day, because I saw it on Joe Dispenza's, and it's so true. He's like, the human has 70,000, average human has 70,000 thoughts a day. 92% scientifically proven are what you had yesterday. Of those 92%, 90% are low vibrational thoughts. Stress, worry, anger, hate, fear, lack, whatever you want to call it. So 90% of your thoughts on a daily basis, which becomes your life, are on low vibrational things and you're not where you want to be, then you obviously need to change what you're focusing on, right or wrong.
Because where attention goes, energy flows.
Yeah. And the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and then expecting a different result at some point. And so that's why when I talk to people, and I don't coach, but I ask them straight up, I say, how much time a day do you spend thinking about exactly what you want out of life? Most people, it's none. So if you don't even know what you want and you don't have a clear definition of what you want, it's
going to fall into your lap.
You know, like it's just a wish. It's just
for most people,
fantasy.
it's not even a thought.
It's not even a thought. So like, how do you get there? And so that would be my goal, is like for someone, just like define exactly what they want in each one of those categories, write it down, have a clear vision what it is, and then the part that is the toughest, but it's where the magic happens, is feel it as already being done. That's what's programmed in your subconscious, and that's where 98% of the power lies. And that's when the universe will work with you, and not what you feel like is against. It's never working against you. It's working with you all the time. It's just your energy and mindset and focus is in the wrong place. That's it.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Mate, thank you so much. I've got 2 last questions for you. Nice and simple. Is what's next for Gil? Where can people find you if they want to follow?
Yeah. So
plug yourself. Go for it.
What's next is I'm actually going to try to work on like a follow-up course to the book, because I have a lot of people that want to either do like a online mastermind where I really take them through it, you know, because all the information's there, but a lot of times people want to have that dialogue, and I'm
connecting to people, so they want to be led by you.
And I'm working with a group that I just went on this personal development retreat in September, Marrakesh too. Now I want to start being and hosting more of those in 2026. I found it extremely powerful. It was another step of like investing into myself to really unravel more of these programs and, you know, untell myself stories that I've been telling myself that I felt like were keeping me stuck. On Instagram, you can find me at Luxury World Traveler, or at gil.antolin, Antolin. From there, you can pretty much get a hold of me anywhere. And yeah, I mean, it was a pleasure to be on here. I've been like, ever since we spoke in depth that one night, I'm like, we got to do this, because
the tequila launch, I think it was.
It was a tequila launch for me, but it was just before we had the tequila, by the way. And it was only one little sip. But yeah, we started, you know, you can feel immediately when someone is speaking your language. And there was like 20 guys there. And, you know, again, there are no coincidences in the universe. We just happened to be sitting next to each other. And I felt like we were in our own little universe, just talking about your experiences, my experiences. And like, this is what's really next for me. I just really want to take what I have learned, both through life and also through like, you know, absorbing all this information on all these different platforms, and just, you know, regurgitate it and push it out to the world. Because once you've created and manifested a dream life, been to 80 countries, stayed at over 500 of the world's luxury top hotels, been in jets, yacht, like all this stuff that seems like fantasy island. Once you've lived it, I just feel like a responsibility to like push it out and like help as many other people get out of there. Because look, we all want our best lives. And you know as well as I do, we live in an infinitely abundant universe. If I win, doesn't mean you lose, or vice versa. There's so much to go around. So there's no reason to hold on to it. And like I said, I feel like I was getting choked. Now I don't have that feeling anymore. And I think that's why I have more energy, because I'm just like talking about this. My whole Instagram's about it. I'm doing podcasts about it. But it just feels so right. And the response has been amazing. And if it can just help to change one person's life, then for me, it's worth it. That's job done, you know?
Thank you.
So nice to be on here. Appreciate it. Right.